My name is Jenny Granger, and I am the Deputy Secretary for Multi-Modal Transportation here at PennDOT. I'd like to welcome you all today, and I'd also like to thank, with us, we have Capital Area Transit, representing the City of Harrisburg, Mayor Papenfuse, and all the state and transportation officials that made these improvements here in Market Square possible. As many of you have witnessed driving by over the last year, there's been a lot of activity. So part of that activity, part of this project has been mainly focused on safety elements, but also some aesthetic treatments here within Market Square also. So you'll notice off to my right, you'll see some additional signals, some no turn on red signs, some illuminated signs that indicate when the buses are approaching, pedestrian warning signals that were added at the corner of 2nd and Market. We've also updated the bus loading zones. We've installed leaning rails, low profile furniture. There are new bus shelters, and most importantly, new improved ADA accessible crossings, including access to our westbound bus waiting area. The bus shelters, and the project didn't just stop here. The bus shelters that were previously here, we determined were in pretty good shape, and CAT was able to repurpose those along corridors on her street that were in much needed locations. So these improvements, again, as I mentioned, they enhance safety for pedestrians, bus riders, and drivers alike. Improving transit facilities is important because, believe it or not, we have public transit in some form in each of our 67 counties within the Commonwealth. These services are always available, and they are more critical now than ever. Public transit connects people to their communities, transports them to medical appointments and for their COVID vaccines, to shopping, and to visit loved ones. Additionally, transportation should never be an impediment to medical care or, like I said, receiving your COVID-19 vaccine. PennDOT is proud to help Pennsylvanians get to these appointments and these visits. We are able to provide these services through both lottery and Act 44 funds that subsidize these trips for seniors and individuals with disabilities every day. And I would be remiss if I did not thank our elected officials for making this happen. We were able to work collaboratively with the city and CAT to implement these improvements by the utilization of Act 89 funding. It is with innovation, local resources, and strong partnerships that we create the most sustainable, inclusive transportation assets possible. And I personally, along with the Secretary and the Governor, are proud to be involved in preserving not only the safety, but also the mobility of Pennsylvanians and helping to improve their quality of life. And I am blessed with the honor today to introduce Mayor Papenfuse.
Hey, thank you. Yes, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. That was a great overview and a great introduction. What I want to just talk a little bit about is about the city's commitment to Vision Zero. And Vision Zero is a multi-year plan to eliminate pedestrian fatalities caused by automobiles or buses. It's a citywide comprehensive movement, and it means that every transportation project we take on in any corridor of the city fundamentally puts walkability, bikeability at the front and center, as well as bus routes and improvements. We're doing this throughout the city, and I want to give special thank you to PennDOT, because later this summer, we're going to be embarking on a project which is funded by them to completely transform State Street. And that's a much needed project for Harrisburg. And then later on into next year, we're doing the same thing, a major upgrade transformation of the intersection at Foster Street and Front Street. And those two routes have been identified, along with needing to improve the transfer center here. They were identified as being some of the least safe intersections in Harrisburg, and that's why we're focused on upgrading. And PennDOT gets a lot of credit because they came to the city, they said, how can we help? And they brought funding and vision with them. And I also want to thank our friends at CAT for being there at the very beginning and helping us reimagine how this would work in a way that didn't back up onto 2nd Street, provided ADA access. And let's talk about a few of the upgrades that I think are really, really exciting. Obviously, you can see the new shelters, you can see the leaning rails. Those are nice and exciting for Harrisburg. But I want to mention the bollards and the chains. If you look over there to the intersection, which has just been a notoriously difficult intersection to cross, the bollards and the chains are there to help guide pedestrians to the well-marked crosswalks, which now, of course, have 5-second pedestrian lead times, which give the pedestrians extra time to get on the road before the traffic turns green. Prior to the bollards, people would just walk any which way there. And we also want to give thanks to the Hilton for working with us on that design, and it actually works. I challenge you to walk across the street and to see how it helps guide you to the safer route. So that's a terrific thing. We also have visual signal and audio for when buses are approaching. It's a major upgrade, and as was alluded to, this is really just the beginning. But Vision Zero is at the core of everything that the city is doing, including the upgrades that you see here. Not only do we want to thank PennDOT for the funding, but we want to thank CAT as the project sponsor, and Michael Baker, who was the designer, Gannett Fleming, who was the construction inspector, Rogel, who did the contracting, and of course, our city engineer, Wayne Martin, who's here in his Vision Zero t-shirt for basically reviewing all of the items here, including the line painting, the new sidewalks, the bollards, and everything. So a lot more to come in the city of Harrisburg Vision Zero. But this is a part of it. And next, I would like to introduce our friends at HAC, and we're going to have CAT Board Chairman Eric Bougale. Eric.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank PennDOT for being such a valued partner to CAT. Their support allows us to advance our mission of mobility. Having the efficient, well-run transit system here in the state capitol is really important. It's symbolic, but it's also necessary for commerce and state employees. And hopefully we'll be getting those state employees back and as our customers here directly. This space here on the square is just one example of how together we're helping the region move forward. With transit, every trip begins and ends with walking. Also, multiple modes come together here: walkers, bicyclists, transit riders, and we're mindful that not only connecting these modes, but protecting those who utilize those modes for mobility. It's critical that our infrastructure, transit hubs like these, are safe and attractive to pedestrians and riders who board our vehicles, and just the people even driving by, to make it an attractive part of the city. The many upgrades that made at this location include the shelters, the leaning rails, and the crossing features, and they will not only improve the safety here, but also enhance the rider's experience. The region needs a transit system that is effective and efficient, and projects like these help achieve those goals. I'd like to introduce Rich Farr, our Executive Director at CAT.
Good morning. There are many facets to transit and safety, certainly like the features we see here today. But most recently, we're about the business of safely transporting residents to receive their vaccines, as Deputy Secretary Granger mentioned. I am very proud of our team. Since March of 2020, our employees have been there to serve the essential employees, our riders, ensuring that our riders are out in the community fulfilling their responsibilities to make sure that we receive the goods and services that we expect every day. On February 16th, we began offering free shared ride trips to local vaccine sites. Since that time, CAT and Rapid Transit together have completed more than 2,000 paratransit trips to local vaccine sites. Safety is our core value, and we hold that true at every level. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our founding partners, Cumberland County, Dauphin County, and the city of Harrisburg. Without their ongoing support, CAT would not be able to open its doors to over 1,000 people every day. Last, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank PennDOT for their assistance in making mobility happen. Not just this project is just one example of how we move people. And we have to remember, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, moving people is part of transportation, and it's very important as part of our infrastructure. So with that, we conclude our formal comments. We'll take questions. Yes, so we had a very unfortunate circumstance happen 2 years ago, maybe, where there was a pedestrian fatality. For all the reasons why the mayor mentioned the importance of keeping people in a path and crossing at the crosswalk where it's safe. So distractive driving, there's also distractive walking. And so, these days individuals are on their cell phones and they're just wandering sort of aimlessly. And so with this project, we have not had any near misses since we've opened it up with the transit system. We measure those. So it's greatly improved having pedestrians where they need to be, so motorists and the bus drivers can see where they are, looking for them where they're supposed to be. Yes. Yeah, on our fixtures program, approximately 1,000 people a day will come through this transfer center. That's pre-COVID, and so I don't have the numbers for COVID, right? So but that also does not include the number of pedestrians. Clearly, there are a lot of employees who work in the area. There's restaurants, so there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in addition to the transit, and we want everybody to be safe. The whole purpose of the Vision Zero.
Can I add one
Absolutely.
thing to that, Rich?
Yeah.
I'm just going to add that we have what's called a high injury network, which means that Vision Zero is data driven, and we chart where we have accidents and pedestrian fatalities, and you can find all that on the Vision Zero website, Vision Zero HBG. And this intersection was problematic, and we are following the data, and we've already seen a great improvement, as I noted, in how people are crossing the street. It's very cleverly done. You don't notice it, but look at the wall of planters behind me, clearly keeping people away from the buses, having the pedestrians have a wide space to transfer, and the bollards do the same thing. So that, plus the changes in lead time and turning and the new signage, all makes for a much safer experience for people here in the downtown.
We've had well over 2,000 shared ride trips, which is pretty significant, right? Because and they're the ones who are calling us to tell us they're going to the vaccine. So people who are going to pharmacies and stuff, they may be getting them and that we don't even know about, because we do provide a very robust transportation program already. So they're the ones who've called us and said, I need a trip to a vaccine. So those numbers could be more than twice that number. And so, and when you think about, Harrisburg's a pretty good sized city, but when you start to leave Harrisburg and you go north, it's a pretty rural county. And so having rural access to vaccines is incredibly important. They should call their transit system, either CAT or Rapid Transit, and we will work with them to get them a trip to their vaccine.
Okay. Do you happen to know Lebanon and Red Rose? I think they're doing it too, right?
Yes, almost all the transit systems in Pennsylvania are offering free shared ride to vaccines.
So tell me why this is important. I've noticed that that vaccination rates are lower among disadvantaged, harder to serve communities. So why do transit agencies play a part in hopefully overcoming that?
Well, we know that mobility matters, and we know that people have to have equal access in life to have a high quality of life, and that's what transportation does. So we really want to remove that barrier, so transportation is not the reason why they can't get a vaccine. And so there should be no reason why anyone in Pennsylvania who needs a trip to get a vaccine cannot get that.